wanna know what you, yeah, I wanna know what you want. My niggas gon' blow at you, yeah, my niggas gon' blow at you down.
Yo, what is poppin' B+ gang? How's it going? How you doing? All them pleasantries. Today I want to talk about one of the most important and integral topics of our everyday, day-to-day lives. Something philosophers and scientists alike still just can't seem to wrap their little baby brains around. We got millions of NASA dollars sunk into this important research, you know, something that some may even say ranks higher than ending world hunger on the list of societal importance. And that would be this upcoming Playboi Carti album. All jokes aside though, y'all should know that I am a huge Carti fan, and I know I speak for a lot of us Carti fans when I say that this rollout period has been an absolute treat to witness. It's almost as though, like, you know, when you plan out the music you want to drop and you plan out a rollout or release schedule for an album, it pans out better than if you act all mysterious all year and then randomly tell everybody when you're gonna drop an album. I know it's become on brand for Carti to be this elusive figure that barely drops any music and isn't really doing too much in the limelight, but it's been very refreshing to see this new era of Carti, where at least until this new album drops or comes out, he's being very forthcoming, transparent, and overall just more consistent with the release of new music, which is like, damn, bro, you know, it's kind of hard to just hear myself and listen to myself as a Carti fan, because it's wild that I'm giving this man praise for doing the default that most artists do in the first place, which is just drop songs on a consistent basis. But like I said earlier, I understand that it's become part of his overall strategy to keep the fans in the dark so that they just crave so badly to hear just 10 seconds of some fire Carti snippet. You know, they'll sell off their first child.
I just be styling this hard to sleep.
It's the best song I ever fucking heard in my life.
The strategy works because he also employs the same strategy on his other Opium label mates, where they're kind of leveraging this mysterious persona. Ooh, well, you never know where we're gonna drop, which has had the unintended side effect, I think, of spawning an entire secondhand market where leakers and hackers have made a fortune off of selling his unreleased songs and leaking the music to the fans. Though I won't get too deep into that topic because this is the sort of thing that could spawn off into its entire separate own video all in itself. But just know that this probably did affect how much music was actually able to be officially released by Carti himself. This leaking business caused two things to happen. It created a culture where realistically Carti didn't really have to release music to stay relevant anymore, and there was a good stretch of time between Dial It and Whole Lotta Red where all of his biggest songs were leaks. For a minute there, you quite literally had motherfuckers making full-length Carti albums just off of the strength of the leaks on the internet. And bruh, I ain't even gonna lie, them bitches were fire. I had some of them saved in my iCloud. The second thing this did is somewhat spoil the fan base in a way, because it seemed like we never had to wait for new music to come out. It seems like we were privy to all of Carti's best songs before they were even officially dropped. All that to say, what Carti is currently doing now, he does not ever have to do. He never needs to release music like this, even if he was releasing an album. And this is a very obvious departure from the norm. I honestly think he's at the point in his career where he doesn't have to change anything. He could do a surprise drop like Beyonce style and sell a shit ton of units, especially after building up the Opium label. I'm thinking he could honestly just sit back and enjoy the fruits of being an almost 10-year plus artist with a die-hard fan base. So we're putting on our thinking caps here. I think this could mean a few things for Playboi Carti going forward, and in this video I really want to get into some of these. So if you're a Carti fan, or if you're a fan of hip-hop analysis, make sure you're tapped in with that subscribe button so you do not miss an upload. I think we're building a pretty cool community of people here who like to trade ideas, and the interactions I do have with you guys in the comment section have all been very positive and, you know, introspective. So if you are in the B+ gang, just know I couldn't do any of this without you guys' feedback, so thank you. Alright, so going forward for Carti, I see a few possible outcomes. I alluded to one earlier, and that could be that once this album is finally released, this era of consistent Carti will come to a close and things will go back to the way they were. And this is kind of like the more neutral timeline, I suppose, but it would also lead to things being how they've been for a very long time. So I think this is probably one of the more likely outcomes from all of this, because it's the easiest things for Carti to do, since if he just doesn't release music, it benefits him at the same time, and people start to miss him more and wonder what he's working on. I know this kind of sounds like the more boring timeline, but personally I'm pretty neutral on it because it would just be completely in character for Carti to just not release any more music for a while. A more exciting possibility going forward for Carti is that we may be witnessing a new era of Carti altogether, the consistent Carti era, as I like to call it. I will admit that I'm engaging in a bit of wishful thinking here, but I think it will all make sense if you listen to where my thought process is led. Okay, I think that in general, outside of a couple cases, the business model of being this mysterious artist who barely drops any music has diminishing returns on investment the more and more you use it, especially in the internet age of music. We see artists like Yeet basically skip to the top of the underground by doing the exact opposite music strategy and saturating everyone in the industry with his sound and aesthetic to the point that you cannot look away or deny his cultural impact, especially not when you're in fucking Despicable Me or Rise of Gru movie. And that juxtaposes to the likes of Sofago, who was also at the top of the underground, but after he went mainstream, he decided to do the whole mysterious thing after signing Travis Scott, blah blah blah. He claimed it for a year, after his peak, whatever. There's videos about that out there. That's why it was very cathartic to see Carti call out Frank Ocean, who is a fellow mysterious music artist man, and tell him to actually drop music for a change. At the end of the day, it really is just a gimmick, and like gimmicks tend to do, they get old very fast. Just returning to Frank Ocean and using him as an example here, he's a very talented artist where people know that if we wait for a long time for a music release, it will most likely be a quality piece of work. That being said, Frank's last album was in 2016. And this guy is one of those musical genius types that's always in the studio working on new music, trying out new sounds, etc, etc. This nigga has the free time to record life-changing, sensational covers of other people's songs, and has been teasing an album for like 3 years, but yet there's nothing to show for it. In my personal opinion, the point of making the fans miss you so much when you're gone is so that when you finally deliver, you can kind of over-deliver and trump whatever expectations that these people set up so long ago. Not to just make niggas miss you indefinitely, while I know you're out here making music that's fire and you're just not releasing it. But see, the thing is, I didn't just sit there and wait for Frank Ocean to drop music again. I got introduced to new artists. I stopped listening to stuff I probably grew out of. Fuck nigga, I graduated high school in that 10-year span. Life moves on, bro. And in some regards, I've left Frank behind. Now, the music he released from that period is still fire, and I can return to it at any time, but I'm just no longer in the state of clamoring for the next Frank Ocean song. That effect has long worn off. At this point, I have the attitude of fuck it, bro, I'll see you when I see you, which I think is probably not the attitude you want people to have towards your music, because like I said earlier, we're in the internet age. There's a vast ocean of different genres and artists that you've probably never heard of but will probably enjoy. You could say that this whole gimmick is like a stamp of confidence on the part of the artist, where they're saying like, I trust my fans trust me, but at the same time, it's definitely, I think, a bit of a show of arrogance, where the artist is saying, no matter how long I make people wait, they will be fine with it, which in any consumer market is kind of like a dangerous mindset to get into, thinking that people will just wait around indefinitely for whatever service you have to provide to them, admittedly, even if it's a good, really good service. And continuing from speaking about things from a market perspective, I think that's why we see so many Carti clones or Uzi clones, and that's why the leak market was so crazy at one time, because people are noticing that when these guys go away for a while, there is still a decent sized market of people that so desperately want the next official release. So you might not remember, but Carti's last project, Whole Lotta Red, was actually a pretty controversial piece of art when it first hit the scene. I know there's a lot of new Playboi Carti fans or most likely Opium fans, so there's like this revisionist history around what happened when Whole Lotta Red first released. But for a good while, this project kind of split the entire fan base, and there were people who thought that the album was just straight garbage. I know, because I was one of those people, and I was a little disappointed with the way that the album turned out and that none of the leaks that we heard made the album. And I know that critical thinking isn't a lot of Carti fans' strong suit, but there's actually like a very valid reason for the fans not thinking that Whole Lotta Red was that good of an album on its release. So the concept of the project called Whole Lotta Red is a project that is most likely existed in various different forms throughout Carti's career. It was like almost immediately after the release of Die Lit that Carti started talking about his next project called Whole Lotta Red, and it was obvious that he was working on it in the background. So I think that before the official release in 2020, Carti had finished Whole Lotta Red one other time, as I famously remember him saying that it would drop within the next 60 days, only for that to never fucking happen at all, dude.
I'm trying to drop my shit in the next 60 days. He said I'm gonna drop that shit in like 6 days.
So judging from a leak recorded around 2018 called Skeleton, there is speculation that this is from an older version of Whole Lotta Red, where it was more of a progression of his Die Lit and self-titled albums, with lots of like Pierre Bourne style production and essentially like no rage beats, since that didn't really exist yet. And I personally know a lot of people that would probably kill to hear this version of Whole Lotta Red, especially if you're not like too fond of the whole vamp Opium era Carti aesthetic. But you know, somewhere along the line, I think notably after the release of Lil Uzi's Eternal Take, Carti and his team decided to scrap any prior version of the Whole Lotta Red project and go for something that was almost a complete departure from the signature sound Carti had forged up to this point. But see, that was kind of a bold move on their part, because that sound that Carti cultivated was very sought after. You know, like people wanted to either copy or they were literally selling his music for thousands of dollars. So it's speculated that the Whole Lotta Red that we know it as today was basically a rushed album that at most was created within the span of a single month, and at the very least was recorded within 5 days, which created many problems at the release of this new album. One was this obvious departure from the sound that Carti had, and there were people that preferred his old sound over this new rage sound. Two was that he essentially gave up on the leaked songs from releasing in any official capacity, like turning his back on like a very crazy era of some of his best received music. Because it was recorded so fast, there was really no time to promote any of the songs. It was weird because since he had just recorded that music only a month prior before releasing, there was no real reason for him to have gone on such a long hiatus between releases. Like, people assumed that we weren't getting Whole Lotta Red because it was a huge time investment. At the end of the day, it ended up being something that he didn't really have to put too much of his time or I guess effort in, and he didn't give the fans exactly what they wanted. And you gotta remember, like I said before, the Playboi Carti fans are eating spoiled at this point. We got Pissy Pamper, Cancun, Arm and Leg, and many other bangers that never officially released, but people probably still look fondly upon them. So Whole Lotta Red was a highly anticipated release for years, and it seems like mostly due to like leaks getting out of hand. I guess no one was really prepared for that release until it was slated to release only a month later. So for my closing thoughts here, I think that's why this album could mean that Carti is starting to steer his ship in a new direction. Because as much as I love the guy's music, historically there's almost been no planning to it whatsoever. While I certainly don't think he's gonna, do this 360 or I guess 180s and like be hitting us with consistent music releases for the next 52 weeks or anything, I think it is telling that the guy who is famous for not releasing any music is making songs called 2024 music music, and it's finally like acknowledging the future for one. So call me some kind of crazy guy or whatever, but I think that we may be getting more Carti music in 2024. I think the whole Opium label being able to grow at the rate that it has had to give Carti some sort of wider perspective on the music industry, because it finally seems like Ken Carson, Destroy Lonely, and Homicide are finally starting to release music within decent stretches of time from one another. So if you enjoy Opium artists and what they have to offer, there's always something going on there and always something to be paying attention to. So I think it only makes sense in their game plan at this point to finally disperse some Carti in the mix, and it just seems like a really good recipe for good things to happen for everyone within the collective. So anyways guys, what do you think of the new Carti records? I think as of recording this, he's released like 3 of them so far, and my favorite hands down has got to be 2024 music with Hood by Air or Hoodie Air, whatever it's called, in last place. I still think these records are pretty comparable to each other in quality, but what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in those comments, as I do try to respond to each and every comment. But if I don't see it down there, then hopefully I'll see you guys on the next